name is Shanahn Smith, and I was born and raised in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, so Jasper, Georgia.
Jasper, Georgia.
Jasper, Georgia. Yes, sir. My childhood structure, basically, I had an absentee father. I had a mother that was doing her very best to raise a family of 5, but she took us to church when she could. It's one of those things. I was raised, I guess, in a Southern Baptist background, I guess is what you would call it. So we went when we could. But it wasn't I guess, a stable environment when it comes to the church house. Well, my father tried to play a role in our upbringing, but being a first-time father of 5, since it was my mother's 3rd marriage, he was doing everything in his power to survive. He was a truck driver and was absent a lot in the home. Definitely introvert. Yeah, as much as I'm an extrovert now, and I look back and I wonder why in the world, how much of a change took place in me. I really didn't like people. I didn't know how to relate to people. I was a homebody. As much as I desired and longed to be around people, I just could not, I guess, click with anyone, really. I think with me, concerning my sexual attraction to the same sex, it started at a very early age, and I don't think that it was as much as a sexual desire as a desperate cry or need for male affirmation, attention. Having an absentee father, I was missing out on, what a little boy is longing for, which is that father figure. Now, at the time, I didn't see that, and to be honest with you, it took me years of being saved before I could come to that understanding. However, with that said, I struggled as a child to know who I was. And so when I looked at other men, there was a longing and the desire more to be them than to be with them. There is, I guess, a deep-seated self-hatred within me, even from an early childhood, and why and where that came from, I really don't know. But so I guess to answer your question, the same-sex attraction started really around the age of 13, 14 that I remember. I was always different. I was different than all the other, I guess, men in my grade. But well, having been raised in a very small town that is, I guess, as country as one can get, my femininity made me a target from, I guess, 5th grade forward, if not actually prior to that. Because of my longing to be males, I stood out. I was always sitting back and admiring and I guess window shopping for a new me. So, of course, all my friends were females for the most part. But starting in 5th grade forward, my life became very difficult to bear. By the 8th grade, which is the middle school year, I had attempted suicide about 2 or 3 times, and they had eventually ended up having to pull me from the school system in the 8th grade halfway through the year. So, I mean, it was very difficult, to say the very least, growing up with the confusion that I was dealing with. I think I gravitated towards the female as comfort, and because we did have a lot of similar interests, not in as much that we were wanting to date men in that sense at that age, but I didn't really know how to be a man. In all honesty, I had been raised with a house full of women, 2 older sisters, a mother, a godmother, God lover that just was very unique in her outlook on life. So, long story short, I had no way of understanding how to be a man. I had never even seen it in my home or in my life. So I naturally gravitated towards the feminine, I guess, role. Well, to be honest with you, how I ended up surviving the suicide attacks or suicide attempts is truly a miracle in itself. And for me at that point, I didn't really believe that there was a God, because how could a living God that the Bible spoke of have tolerated and allowed such confusion and brokenness, hurt, disappointment in my life? Of course, I was receiving a lot of grief from my peers in school. So, I mean, it was a violent atmosphere I really had to suffer through. Most of the time in the school system, I would run from the situations rather than actually engage. For example, lunchtime every day, I literally would skip lunch and would hide in a band room, you know, just to keep from having to deal with that type of, I guess, hostile environment. Now, with that said, sorry. My parents intervened at that moment. They realized I had come to a point that I was a danger to myself. That's when they started drastically making changes in my life. And one of the ones that they felt was needed was to pull me from the school system. To be honest with you, when I look back in hindsight, I know it's 2020, God intervened on my behalf. Even without me knowing Him, without me worshiping Him. You know, I think I was 15 when some of the neighbors showed up that was my age, and they just wanted to hang out, you know, and that was very peculiar. But just, I think 2 days prior to that, prior to their arrival, I had loaded a Glock 9 and was going to end my life. Now, with that said, it pushed me into a lifestyle that I wasn't accustomed to. So very shortly after meeting them, I was beginning to drink and do drugs and stuff. And so from that point forward, started a 9-year drug addiction. So, but to be honest with you, the drugs is what saved me from killing myself. By the age of 15, I mean, I was already doing LSD and smoking weed and doing meth and different things. So, and I was already acting out upon my same-sex attractions as well by then. So. Believe it or not, you would think that the drugs would open up the gates to, I guess, me being able to be honest with myself and to others. But even with the drugs, I still remain very closeted concerning my attraction. Everyone in the world knew it. You know, there was no one that didn't know it after speaking with me only for a few moments. But I just couldn't come to the terms with having to accept that that's who I was, because I so desperately didn't want to be that individual. You know, and it wasn't because of church, it wasn't because of a biblical stance, it was simply because I did not want to be different in my life. I desired so desperately to be anybody but me. And this was just one more reason why I just didn't want to be me. In the beginning, you know, I was so desperately trying to fit in that I was more willing to do whatever it took to be one of the group. And so what started out as just harmless fun suddenly snowballed for me because it was self-medication. It took away a lot of pain, a lot of hurt that I had been dealing with, multiple suicide attempts. I mean, should testify that I was an individual that was dealing with a lot of heartache. And so where they were just having fun, I was suddenly living for the first time without burden, without pain, without sorrow. And so it was immediately a draw for me. There came a point that I began to actually accept the homosexuality as just a way of life. I began to see that, you know, it wasn't something I needed to hide any longer. And so I ended up having several jobs at several nightclubs here in Atlanta. I ended up working at even a gay strip club for a while. And I think there was one time I actually even worked as a private dancer, you know. Whatever it took to be around the people that I thought, you know, was going to make me happy. Of course, the drugs helped as well. But when it came to my same-sex attractions, by I guess the age of 18, I had begun to, you know, do whatever it took to be sexually active. You know, as much as I longed for a monogamous relationship, it became a fantasy that I chased. That was just there was such futility to it. In the 12 years that I was actively, openly in the gay lifestyle, the longest relationship I ever had was 6 months, and you know, basically, it was based entirely on sex, and I had to literally put my life on the line just to have that opportunity of being loved. My partner at the time was HIV positive. He was on dialysis, you know, and these are things they're things that I'm not ashamed of. But what I want to stress is that I had come to a point after 12 years of being hurt and disappointed, one night stand after one night stand, that I was willing to to put my health and my life on the line just to have someone tell me that they loved me, and not just wanted me for a certain reason or act or a moment in time. By the grace of God, and it's only by the grace of God, I was never diagnosed with having HIV or AIDS. I had many lovers that were positive, and no, I did not use protection. There came a point that I guess the suicidal tendencies came back, and I just despised life to the point that I was willing to die just to find pleasure. When I met my friend for the first time at the club, he was really everything I had been looking for as far as sex appeal. I was one of those individuals that was very timid. Life scared me. The world scared me. You know, I just, as far as masculinity, my cup was empty. You know, I was looking for someone that could protect me and that could keep me safe. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Really, I was looking for a father, even in my desire, my longings. But so I found an older individual that was just fit what I was looking for, what I thought would bring me comfort and security. And so when the individuals, to my surprise, showed interest in me, you know, at that moment, because it was everything I had longed for and wanted for so long, I was definitely willing to die for it. And so, you know, I remember the first time that he brought me home. You know, he was very open and honest about his status and his health. Yet, even when he offered to do the right thing and to use a condom, I told him it was not necessary. Immediately, I made a choice at that moment. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be loved. I'm going to have love, and I'm going to have what, you know, I believe to be normal when it comes to a relationship. But, you know, with that said, how normal is it to be so willing and so ready to just die just for a moment of pleasure or a moment of love or a moment of acceptance? You know, there was such an imbalance to that, but I couldn't see it.